That's their team name.
These guys are telling me, it's like, I know exactly where they're.
That's what we got.
Like listening to the radio.
Skating right to left on your radio dial.
Hello.
Okay, now we're streaming. Now we're streaming.
Counselor, do you need the gavel?
I don't know, Counselor, do you need the gavel? Guess not.
We're streaming, Counselor.
Okay. Counselor Moore, it's all you.
Call the meeting of the City Infrastructure Committee to order. Roll call.
Councilor Moore?
Here.
Councilor Gibb?
Here.
Mayor Reed?
Present.
Councilor Armstrong?
Here.
Councilor Kelly?
Here.
Councilor Ensel?
Here.
Councilor McFarland?
Okay. First, we'll have the reports from the department representatives with discussion from the council. Who would like to go first? Ron?
You guys gonna jump up quick, you don't wanna follow this guy.
I might take all the time, I don't have to go. So, the test wells out of Mead Reservoir are proceeding. Like I said, done a great job of coordinating the work out there. We've got roads that are being constructed so the big rigs can get in there and all that, so we're hoping sometime in the near future we'll be drilling some test wells. The valve replacement project at Mead is proceeding. We're piecing that together ourselves by managing the job. Some of the costs are a lot higher than we expected, so we're looking at some ways of doing some of the work in-house to get that cost down. The bathymetric surveys are being finished up on the reservoir. That's measuring the water depths in each reservoir so that Schnabel can finish up their safe yield analysis. The upgrade to the primary clarifier project is almost ready to go out to bid, as is the belt filter press replacement project is almost ready to bid. And the Cumberland Avenue Pump Station Combined Sewer Overflow project is almost ready to go out to bid. So it's going to be a busy summer there. Mitigation work is proceeding pretty much on course. We've had some meetings recently about different components of that, the haul waste relocation, the odor control upgrades, some architectural upgrades. We are preparing some new grant applications under the Water Quality Improvement Act for some sewer system upgrades, putting together a comprehensive strategy for an application on the drinking water Infrastructure Improvement Act grant program, and we're looking at whether or not some of the needs we have at our plant fits with any of the CFA applications that are now being prepared. So that's it in a nutshell.
Just want to follow up on any plans for altering the facade of the building. You know, I mean, I can't remember from time to time where we left off.
There's been a lot of behind-the-scenes work, and I think we're getting pretty close to having a public meeting to present some of the ideas to the public and start to get developing ideas from there and trying to get everybody on the same page of what the theme should be down there.
Okay. And that undoubtedly, I know that Director Miller had kind of framed the discussion about the relocation of the farmers market in terms of some more strategic planning for down in the Dock Street area, if I'm correct. And it seems like there should be some continuity between that as well. So, and I'm sure you've already thought of that.
We had a meeting with all the principals earlier this week and heard some of his initial ideas. And by the way, the mitigations that he was discussing at sewage treatment plant for odor and noise, I think he was estimating will deal with 90% of the problems.
Mhm.
And the engineering firm is being very imaginative. There's still a number of scenarios they're looking at. And weren't you saying in about a month's time you hope to have some sort of a forum to discuss these, maybe even have an open forum right down to the plant itself under a tent and invite the public and roll out some of these possible ideas?
Yeah.
Good, very good. Good
Yeah,
work.
so-
Thank you.
Well,
That was all in the grant that you worked on with Amy, right?
Yeah.
Last year.
any
Thank you.
questions? No?
Before we leave your operation, Mr. Gushlaw just received a score of 100 on his exam, has been recently promoted, so congratulations.
Yay! Good work. Ooh. Mike, that sly smile.
As you know, we shut down the old base marina and Wilcox Dock because of the flooding situations. We shut them down. Mike's been working hard on the street paving projects. We are almost coming to a close. I'm getting ready, and we'll be announcing when that's going to be happening shortly. I want to do it right now, okay?
Okay.
That's
Okay.
basically what we got going on right now. We've been busy with that.
Have to wait for the temperatures to come up too, don't you?
Yeah, a little bit.
To a sustained level.
Yes. So we're getting things done, trying to get things lined up.
Very good.
Anything else? Any other questions?
You've been working hard to get the beach ready. The high tide hasn't been helping you, but
Yeah, right.
Oh,
The volleyball area is all cleaned up. Front of the bar room right there, it's cleaned up.
gotta get the reality check kids out there to pick up cigarette butts, huh?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
and they've also been looking at helping to beautify the harbor side a little bit and make that more of a usable area as
Yes.
well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone have any other questions for water or sewer or anything before we move on? If not, okay, we'll move to agenda items to be brought forward from departments and to be approved by committee and recommended to the council. Number one, request from friends and family of Arnie Pavone with a petition signed by 300 individuals, over 300 individuals, to name the city's proposed parking lot at 25 Margaret Street, the Arnie Pavone parking lot. I don't know when anybody wants to take this up. If we're going to take this up tonight, or?
Yeah, it's on the agenda. It's on the agenda. I
It is.
think so.
Excellent. Request from Director of Community Development, Matthew Miller, that the mayor is authorized to sign a professional services agreement with Architectural Engineering and Design Associates for engineering services related to rebuild 25 Margaret Street site to a new city parking lot for a cost not to exceed $34,600. Payment will be made from the parking fund. Number three.
How's that
Can I
fund
ask,
doing?
What, yeah, I was gonna ask, what do we have in that fund at this point?
$500,000 was already passed through from the general fund to the parking fund of the capital project to buy the building. And the capital project was only at $500,000 for that site. And I know Matt had talked to me about, should we increase that to absorb these costs? So I think we'll have to do a resolution to revise that capital project to add these additional costs in for design and demolition, which we haven't done yet. Correct.
What,
As far as the fund itself,
right,
probably 120,000 in cash. Maybe a little more at this time of year because of the SAP. But certainly not enough to support the cost for these, changes for the department.
Right. So over time, has any surplus gone into reserve, over kind of like the course of history with the parking fund?
The surplus that we had built up of 120,000, we used to pay off all the debt to renovate the Turkey Street parking
Okay,
lot.
gotcha.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
it's probably an equal amount to that. We cut it in half at that point in time. It was 240,000, we used 120 to pay off the long-term debt that was going to be raised for the parking lot.
Somewhat related to this item, the work that AEDA is doing is they're also doing the work for the county to redesign the county parking lot next to the government center. And we're proposing to have AEDA also help us with the redesign of the adjoining parking for Court Street at the same time and make it all seamless and in a cooperative arrangement with the government center. So,
That's not something that has to go out to bid, we can just award it, or?
No, the engineering doesn't have to go out to bid because the city's procurement policy allows us for professional services to bypass public bidding, but the actual construction will have to be publicly bid, yeah.
Any further discussion? Now we have number 4, a request from Water Resource Recovery Facility Chief Plant Operator Christopher Gushlaw to extend contract to 2017-8 sludge hauling for WPCP until May 31st, 2020 with dramatic septic service for the estimated lump sum price of $186,224.
That pretty much is in line with what we paid last year, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah,
Is that?
it's this,
is that-
Okay, so it's all budgeted and,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
extensions make that easy.
That's to bring it to the landfill.
Landfill and, composting facility and, shedding.
Number 5, request from Water Resource Recovery Chief Plant Operator, oh, I just did that one, sorry.
You skipped 3, yeah.
Number
Second
6. No, it is,
No,
it is
the
another
second
one,
one.
yeah, you're right.
You got 3.
Request from Water Resource Recovery Facility Chief Plant Operator Christopher Gushlaw to extend contract 2017-9 Instrumentation Water Resource Recovery Facility until June 27th, 2020 with Total Control Systems Incorporated for an estimated lump sum price of $36,212. No discussion. Number 6, request from Water Resource Recovery Facility Chief Plant Operator Christopher Gushlaw to extend contract 2018-4 Electrical Services Water Resource Recovery Facility from until June 27th, 2020 with Triangle Electric Incorporated. Wages match the CPI-U not to exceed 3%.
Okay, and I'm assuming all this is budgeted and there's no new expenses or things like that, right? Okay. I did have a question about number 3.
Okay?
What is an HTHW generator? What
It's
is that?
something for the college, it's,
Oh, okay.
High temp,
it's
hot water.
So it
going into the college. and
looks
they
like
need
it's
to have
massive, according to the pictures.
Have you ever seen those down there?
No.
It's not the first time they've had that kind of delivery. Wow.
This is phase 2 of the project, right? They've already moved some equipment in
Yeah.
there. They've done this before.
Okay, I would, at this time, make motion to add items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 to the agenda.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried.
I think that's gotta be roll call.
Roll call.
Roll call.
You did all in favor.
Yep, we did.
Okay, any old business for infrastructure? I just had one thing, we're gonna have a schedule of what we're gonna pave this year at some point, so
Yes.
we can tell everybody that yes,
Yeah,
here we are.
we've outlined in our capital plan what we're gonna pay. The timetable, we'll give that out very shortly. A lot of it will depend on coordination, because we utilize county contract for a lot of what we're doing. And we also have prep work that we're responsible for ourselves. It is a delicate dance we're doing here, trying to get, this all together. So we're gonna probably phase a couple projects, get them completed before the end of June. And then from June to
the end of August, we'll have a shutdown period because a lot of our workforce will be tied up with events. And also, we have a high vacation volume during that period of time. End of August and September, we'll probably start the local construction.
Well, I know everyone's looking forward to that, and I thank you for all the work that you've done to get prepared for this.
I forgot that I wanted to bring this up. Is it too late?
No?
And
Okay.
fund the older new business?
Well, which one are we on? I lost
We're still on
track.
old business.
Oh, this is old business. This is the, well, was it a month ago? Jesse Filer came and expressed his concerns about the Durkee Street development becoming an enclave. But, I mean, I think his point was more related to his concern that progress with the bridges connecting Pine Street to the core of the city be pursued. And, you know, as an advocate for the Saranac River Trail, I completely agree that those would be beneficial to the city. But I believe there are capital projects that have kind of languished on the list for a while, and I just wondered what the status of any of that, the consideration for that, those projects. What is the status, if there is any?
Yeah, for the Saranac River Trail, Phase 2, the bridges are awaiting approval from DEC. DEC approval of the plans for the bridges is contingent upon their approval of the NYSEG operations plans for bank restoration at the MGP site.
All right, so it's in limbo, and it doesn't look promising that it's going to get out anytime soon.
It's in limbo. I can't say when DEC
Yeah.
is going to approve or not,
Is
but
there-
based on the phasing and what has to happen before construction and installation of the bridges, it's not likely to happen.
All right, so now my question is, how does that affect whatever we've already allocated in support of those projects? Or, you know, what's the monetary, what is the budgetary implications for this delay?
Well, the only money that we've spent thus far, I believe, is on the engineering for SRT2.
The demolition costs of the bridge too.
That's right.
And we're spending $29,000 today for acquisition of land.
For what?
Acquisition of land.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's along the river on the side opposite from the school.
Yeah, it's
Right.
close to Brody's Auction House.
Okay. All right. Because, I wonder, is there a way, is there some kind of channel of communication that might enable us to pinpoint a projection? You know, we might
I
be,
can certainly ask DEC for an updated estimate
Yeah.
of when they expect to have a decision.
would you mind? I know your office is awful busy.
Do we have any idea from NYSEG when they're going to be moving out of there and down the river a little bit?
Well, when we spoke to them last year, they had plans to start the river remediation this year, but I haven't had any recent conversations with their engineer.
Because I think that it's probably all contingent upon them getting that spot cleared out that they're presently in across from the middle school and then
Yeah.
moving down.
Yeah, when they came in and presented to us, I thought they said it's gonna be another 2 years before they got all the way to the mouth of the Saranac River with their
Right.
remediation work.
Yeah, the remediation work next to the Durkee Street site was scheduled for the summer of 2020. There was a smaller section upstream of the Broad Street Bridge that they were supposed to be doing this year, but again, I haven't had any recent conversations with Arcadis about whether that's still on schedule or not. But technically that's not what's holding up SRT2. What's holding up SRT2 is the bank restoration plan, the planting of new plants to disguise all the work that was done along the rim of the MGP site.
Right. And I'm just wondering if it might be advisable or advantageous to be framing discussion about the Durkee Street development in terms of its eventual connection, you know, and that streetscape along the riverbank in front of the development. If it could be framed in terms of, you know, kind of long-range plans and how it'd all be wonderful that you have a continuous path
Yeah, the pedestrian access to downtown from the other side of the river
Yes.
is a big part of it.
I mean, I know in my discussions with those people who are nervous about the Berkeley Street lot, I really try to emphasize how all the trail systems will eventually connect and provide for walkability and bikeability and all of those other modes of transportation.
And there's a public meeting, second public meeting for the DRI Streetscape and Riverfront Access Project, where they're going to be talking about a lot of those concepts. It's this coming Monday at, is it 6 or 7? 6, and it's here.
Oh, and doesn't that compete with the Prime Design meeting? Isn't the 13th also the, did I get that wrong? Prime's going to unveil its most recent design?
No, that's, they're working on some modifications to the design, and that should be transmitted to the council for their review within the next week.
Oh, okay. I thought for sure I saw something. What was on the Facebook page? Was I confusing that with the streetscape design?
You might have been confused.
Yeah,
I don't think we
okay.
had anything scheduled for your.
All right, so, yeah, I got it now. Thank
Okay.
you.
No problem.
But we can also get you an update on the SRT2 capital project where we stand with the numbers.
Thank you.
Didn't
very
we
much.
set aside $374,000 to help match the,
Yeah,
That sounds familiar, but I'll have to dig
I
up.
thought it was more than that even.
It's a couple $1 million we're talking about total
Yes.
project
Yeah, all that.
for SRT2.
I think we may have already had a fund started, but at some point we approved an additional $374,000 to support that.
And the frustrating thing is that, they're proposing phase 2 to the east of the bridges down here. There's a phase 3 to follow that, where they go right into Lake Champlain. They haven't even started designing that out, so they may well be doing this for another half dozen years at least. And they prefer to keep the plant up at their existing footprint operating and actually barge material all the way up the river to that plant to keep the processing all up there. So to have kind of a clear title to that island up there is
Not like that?
half a dozen years away,
Okay.
frustratingly enough. Meanwhile, kind of DEC doesn't want to give, or is kind of contingent on what's happening with that before they give approval for the banks and for the bridges, and those bridge costs continue to escalate every year. And, the state's money they're giving us isn't escalating, so our shortfall, 374, is going up as we delay, but it's beyond our control, because we have no say on when it's actually done.
But is there a way then to, in our future capital planning, to include some costs to keep up with that pace, to invest?
Sure, and it'd be
Yeah.
really helpful if NICEAG and DEC and the contractors all said to us, here's when we're gonna be done.
Well, yeah.
But they won't.
But there are a lot of things that we have to project, based on variables that are unknown. I don't think should be a problem, and I think that would be a wonderful asset to our city.
We can always revise the capital plan to include more local funding.
Right.
City funding.
Right.
I have to look back and see if we actually included some of that in our 2017 bond issue. I don't recall if we did.
Yeah,
Because I thought it was too far out to commit to,
right.
bringing the funding in and starting to pay debt service on it.
Yeah, I think that's a good, if you wouldn't mind, trying to corralling all of that information and sending it along to my committee.
Yeah, we're gonna
That
have
would
to
be
borrow
good.
some money this year, obviously, for the parking lot and
Yeah.
demolition of the building and engineering and some street work, even though we have CHIPS money coming in. So we'll probably do a ban issue, which we discussed just the other day, Mayor and Dean and I, bond agent. We'll probably do a ban issue later this year.
Okay.
In addition to the refunding bond issues that we're gonna work on here pretty shortly.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions under old business? If not, we'll move on to new business. Is there any new business for?
I don't know if this is new business or part old business. And I guess, I know there was an article in the paper today, or during the week, and I got a couple of calls over the weekend and some emails about the baseball fields predominantly, mostly Lefty Wilson, because that's in my ward, about the condition of them and who was in charge and so on. And I did relay to those callers that a year or so ago, there was that the teams were going to be, or are responsible for the upkeep of the fields, and that the city does the markings and so on. And I guess their concern was just basically with water removal and so on, and that they don't have the capability or tools and so on to remove the water. And I had mentioned that, I know the Little League was scheduled to play their opening weekend, but I don't know of any other leagues that are using Lefty Wilson at this point, but I was told it was more for practice purposes and so on with the CVBL teams and so on. So I don't know if you folks, if DPW got a chance or Recreation got over to do something with the fields or not, but I didn't hear anything after the weekend. So, and I didn't get a chance to get down there to see what the conditions were firsthand. So
I think there were a couple of articles in the paper.
Yeah, I saw the one.
The one on the front page, I think, accurately described that this dated back to an agreement from
Right.
2016, not just last year.
I remember.
2 years ago. I remember it was with
2019
former
now.
director.
Yeah, that's right.
Steve Peters actually worked that
He
out.
came up, he's the
Right.
one who actually, I think, came up with the idea for it.
That's right, and I know that the Recreation Department is assembling some training sessions and a group of volunteers to work with the leagues on how to properly handle the field, how to maintain the field, and they're in the process of ordering up the clay and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
I
Usually-
personally, I think it was just kind of a matter of timing at this point too, where I think no one communicated with when they wanted the field, or as far as practice and so on. I think they just immediately thought that the field would be taken care of. That's just my own personal opinion. But I haven't heard anything since, so that's a positive.
Yeah, I know the groups have been having a number of meetings this week,
Okay.
making sure they're ahead of that.
Good. Thank you.
Is there any other new business? Not, I would have.
Sorry. I met with a constituent regarding train crossing at Miller Street. Apparently there've been a few bike accidents there. She reached out to me, sent an email to the council last night, or yesterday at some point, about possibly just putting up a warning sign. I think it's because of the way the tracks are set up and how it's angled. People, the bike tires get stuck in it, and there have been a couple crashes. Nothing major, I don't think needs to be done, but they were wondering if we could put up like a warning sign. They even provided me with a sample of what the sign would look like, and I'm wondering if we could put one of those up on each side.
If you can provide the sample of the sign to me, I'll look at it.
I would be happy to.
And they're gonna be working at crossing this year, rail, CP rails.
Perfect.
Build it, yes,
Oh,
so.
like they did at Lorraine,
Do you know
Lorraine
when?
Street?
Yeah, late fall.
It's at the end of Durand Street. Durand, one of them.
No, but they
did
rebuilt
Dock
the one at
this year,
Lorraine
and they
Street.
did- Or last year, they did one last
Yeah,
year.
so they're going to stay with us.
They'll do the Miller Street this year. Well, we have to consult with, we spoke to DOT about signage there, what we could do or can't do, and the jurisdiction lies with DOT, even though it's our property, so we need to consult with DOT to find out what signs and where in relation to the tracks.
That's why I wanted an example of your sign.
Perfect, I'll forward it right on to you.
But
I think this is a topic, I think some of the councils have been on council for a while. As I recall back when I started, I think Josh brought up, this complaint is not new. This has been around for a while. It's just an awkward intersection. I think that a lot of problems that are occurring there with bicycles will go away once they we've struggled all winter getting plows through there because of the same issue. So,
Mike, when is the, that crossing gonna be worked on this year?
they won't give exact dates to me or even design. I've requested it. I've had we have a water main leak in that area, so I spent a lot of time trying to move that forward because it isn't within the right of way. The best I can get is late fall. They will not give firm dates.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Was there any other new business? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Roll call.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes.
Okay, meeting of the infrastructure committee is adjourned.
Gentlemen, will you be staying for the regular meeting? Probably not. If you're not, come and get some seats.
So let's begin our work session, an opportunity to have extended discussion on any of the items on the agenda tonight, or is there any need for an executive session tonight?
I'd like to make the motion that we go into executive session to discuss a matter of real estate whose public discussion could affect its value.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Gibbs. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah, I'll send it.
We'll talk to DOT about it.
Pat,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
need to send it. I have it, I'll send it.
Oh, Beth will send it, that's easy.
Very good.
I'm in that
Thanks,
district.
Counselor.
Follow protocol.
Where the ice is more.
They're past. We survived them. I survived those in Florida playing golf.
What's that? There. Bring up something. Bring up something embarrassing.
What are you doing over there?
Pat was trying to maybe speak about something that I don't want to talk about yet, but I had to get ready. So
I heard a boom and it almost went out.
it's USB stick.
You did, you stopped, I think.
I stopped now. Yeah.
Oh, no, I can see you walking.
I didn't bring it.
Yeah, I watched it to make sure it doesn't freeze. Everybody avoided it at home.
Really don't. When he first said, a few businesses, I was like, oh, yeah. I'm getting rid of this. I'm going to talk about it on Tuesday. So
Awful.
rather talk about it Tuesday.
I don't know how that
Sounds like they're doing other projects. I think I read something that they didn't do it last week. This next time, just start preserving.
You're on your own.
Huh?
You're on your own.
No, I'm done.
I guess, since we were down for so it's the same.
After all I've done to help you pick your habit, can I treat you like that?
Oh, you're driving things for an easy speech.
We can probably advance parking so that we don't have to get the. We're gonna have to borrow that. So, that service. Which we avoided pretty well. We might be able to get some salvage out of that involved in safety deposit or everything in the vacuum system.
Are you speaking of the auction of anything that they're not taking?
I can talk to the contact, the guy at the bank. His name was Greg Moore. Gave me a contact about salvaging and stuff. And he was going to do that. Oh, we talked to him together.
Yeah. Because as of now, they requested an extension of the other.
Right. It's funny, it's like it's a stainless steel wall, but if you look at it closely, it's like surface rust.
High quality stainless steel. You have to knock out a wall, back up a tractor trail to get it out of there.
I'm thinking so. Unless you can dismantle the door and wheel it out somehow. But the safe deposit box is inside and I can see that. And I still think that's a value.
Whatever you can squeeze out.
Yes.
Might as well.
Maybe the vacuum system.
How much you can strike the wall.
And I don't really know, I don't have a clue.
$20. They're gonna be doing the best function on your city practices.
Apparently they're not taking much of anything. Petitions, they've got some great petitions.
Correct. But yeah, these one of these cash machines.
It's like you're gonna get that for the lady who's from the beach project. She's already done that.
She's a peach.
So I don't think we have to worry about doing business with her. Oh my God. Never say with the mayor, and that's where you talks about a few things. That was Tuesday, when Noel was here from the meetings that were on just before he showed up, the mayor saw him on the news. It was like, our beach goes. She used to work in our office. Does it? Well, over the building.
She said she was officially doesn't. I think was the rate for
I'm trying to sneak in later too. Smooth. The band boys,
I think I'm trying to get a hold of him.
and we still have their deposit.
Incommunicado, man. Was that the guy who wants that Polish stamp in his arm?
Good.
Which one?
just normal runoff and high winds from the south that just pushed the water right up into the sea.
Yeah, all right, the bay, yeah.
I live in Mark. Your two doctors building was about this far underwater. And the outside equipment that at the restaurant was all, detached and floating away. The bridge across the river, the water was right up to it, and logs were banging into it. Also, the river bridge had a huge log come down and smack right into it, and we thought it was gonna give way because of that. Wilcox Dock was underwater. The whole point there that has the exercise park, let's say, it was gone. The old base marina got flooded out completely. The jetty was destroyed, plus the whole slope. These are roads that was going to slip into the lake. Just a ton of damage all across. Everything at the beach was offloaded. Yeah, that's what was worse than Irene. Irene was mostly the rivers and the streams filling up quick. But this was the entire lake coming up and just going over its sides. The winds, the combination of the high water and the winds from the south, pushing the water north, push it up Scotian Creek, underneath Route 9, and then of course it floods all of the marshland behind it and comes back across the road to get back to the lake. It's just flooding the hell out of Route 9 north. It was bad.
1996, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We had a shitload of snow, and then in the middle of March, it got incredibly warm, 4 inches of rain. So we were on top of like the water was freezing cold, so we're still back on top of it. We got up under the deck, had an old steel truss bridge, actually moved it through the spans, all their buttons carried down the river to the next bridge and smashed against it.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And they collected money, basically, because of it. One shore is around in the middle, and that bridge is cut in 2 spans right across the center of the island. Because they raised money to build the bridge over here. And they took all the money and refurbished this side with this side mess. And then they came back and asked for more money for this side. And they got
Incredible forces that are generated by the floods like that. You just can't conceive of it. Especially if there's ice involved. The way that was just unspoken. So first episode, yeah. Oh, is it? Yeah.
It was already out.
Yeah. I saw the first episode. That was, I had no idea what they were faced with. A reactor blew up.
How many just human mistakes when we led up to that? Yeah. Let's take out these safety pins here. It's a run test. Let's get a whole new crew in at this time of the day. Just
Like the
goofy stuff.
fireman in the parking lot, picking up a piece of graphite that used to line the fuel rods, and wondering why his hands burning all the way off. Right there instantly. It's like, oh boy.
They tell one engineer to go up on the roof and confirm that the reactor explodes.
I can tell you this it's not there anymore.
So he goes up and he looks for about 10 seconds and turns around, his face is pouring breath of radiation.
They had no idea what happened.
It's actually, so I watched that and I was reading about the recovery and that giant sarcophagus that they built around it. It was so radioactive, they
happens, they couldn't even see what they were doing, they were taking direction from servers a couple miles
can't
away
read
from
the same.
our lenses, where to drop concrete, where to drop steel. Basically, that's now
That is recovered.
scientists were pretty, still a couple hundred people who use the lead. So,
I like to see where they're looking at it miles away from somebody's picture, and you see the fire, and you see this bright light shining straight up. Like there's a core of the reactor, and the light straight up in the air from it. It's a giant spot. Yeah, people say they're rather seeing these little stuff.
Just it's on the second one, the middle page, the middle one. Or is, oh, yeah, gone.
it was a comparison sheet about how the radiation was exposed to. Just walking around. It's like the same thing, or very end. So, radiation, I stayed in the for 5 minutes and watching that reactor.
Oh,
Doesn't have to kill 400 people. Yeah. It's my life.
Yeah.
The fuel melted, and the casing chamber melted enough, it turns into this lava substance and coring, and melts right out the bottom of the reactor into the floor. And I didn't know, through my life, I actually had that happen. It's the core didn't burn through the bottom of the reactor vessel.
Can't see these in camera.
But it's that.
Why do you want it?
That's that happens.
Yep. They call that the Chinese one. It just keeps running to the core.
That movie's freaky. That movie came out a month before the accident.
Really?
What's that called?
Chinese. Oh, it's not that. It was, yeah.
I've seen that movie when was it Chad London?
He was a reactor operator.
He's sitting there and he realizes that they screwed up because the one thing was stuck and he taps on the glass and falls down and freak out. And it's like 3 or 4 minutes of just sheer terror.
She's something good experience with nuclear accidents, submarine accidents. Some very interesting stories about how they dealt with that. How many guys died on the submarine before they could get the reactors under control again.
What about it?
Story called The Widowmaker.
Can't right?
Yep, that's right.
That's where I know it from.
Yep.
And actually, so
There was a book, yeah, there's also a movie.
the character Liam Neeson in that movie, he went on for the Soviet submarines during the Cuban Missile Crisis. They had a rule where you need 3 people's approval to launch a nuclear weapon. And at the height of the crisis, when the U.S. was getting ready to drop depth charges on Soviet submarines, 2 of the people in the Soviet submarine below said, yeah, let's go ahead and launch it. The third guy said no, let's just think that it was going to be some submarine. Probably get bored with that nuclear disaster because many of the same one here. Yep. Yeah.
Do they have that whole Chernobyl series on demand? Or do you have to wait? I think you have to wait a week at a time, probably.
Yeah, I think it's HBO, so it's a week at a time.
They're probably this Monday.
They're probably changing that. Yeah, because Netflix, they everybody likes it.
I actually like it when it's one. I think you can enjoy the show more.
You get anticipation.
Yeah.
There's something Game of Thrones to sit there for the whole. So yeah, I'm not gonna do the work on Monday, so I'm watching these episodes straight. But,
What do they call it? Binge watching.
so it's good that they.
When I was watching True Detective, I've been binge watching for years.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for the next show to come out. Wow, I haven't experienced this in a long time. I really like this.
Yeah, first season of that show.
Oh, that was. think they've been down the last few years because the prices were too low to justify it. Yeah, they kept the other one back and running back in the basement.
There was about 4 or 5 nuclear plants in Western Massachusetts. That was they could not work profitably anymore, and the governor decided to charge the state to subsidize profit. So we subsidizing billionaires with
Your sidekick.
So I got a lot of information actually from Potsdam, and then I have some ideas. So do you want me to just put it all together in an email and we can just exchange communication for a while? Yeah, because it's all grass.
So, returning from executive session, discussing a matter of real property, no decisions were made. Any other further discussion on agenda items? Would any councilors like to issue their reports a little bit early?
Sure, I will.
Begin then governance strategy and city operations, Councilor Armstrong.
Yeah, so the ongoing report about OpenGov, we're going to be meeting Jeff Moore, Mike Kelly, and I with OpenGov tomorrow at 12 o'clock to discuss any outstanding concerns and issues that Mike and the mayor have regarding adopting the software. I think Mike will have his questions, and I think they tried to tailor the presentation according to some of the concerns that the mayor and Mike had expressed. So we'll report to you about the outcome of that. We've been working on the climate smart communities, and what did we decide to call the task force, Dean?
Right now it's a sustainability task force. There's a long form, but that's
Right, it's kind of a combination of the mayor's 58-point plan and the climate smart communities plan. And we're just ironing out the details of the composition of that task force. We got some communication from Dazzle Ekblad, the regional director of the Climate Smart Communities, who pointed out that we needed to accomplish a couple more tasks. And I'd like to meet with the mayor and Dean next week to just finalize that, and we get that on the agenda next week. Oh, yeah, Mike and I attended a public engagement meeting with Director Miller and Scott Matthews, and we were on the phone with the White and Burke representative, whose name I always forget. Gail, and Todd Curl from Curly from Prime. Anyway, we were discussing how to meet the public demand for information and get the message out there about how things are progressing, and overall be sensitive to public concerns. And Scott, do you want to add anything about where we're headed?
Yeah. So Matt and I actually met today, and we're finalizing the plan for outreach. I'm going to be going out and doing the business by business and trying to make sure that we're getting the facts out there about the project. And then also making sure to share information on our website, social media, and all the different sources, attend some community events to make sure that we really share what's going on with the project.
Right, and I just want to kind of note something that personally happened to me as as you know, engaged with some of the protesters a couple of weeks ago, and was asked, there was a petition and nothing was done. And I had forgotten at the time, maybe it was in the duress of the situation, but there had been a follow-up meeting with business people downtown. I think you said November 7th.
It was a series of meetings, actually.
Series of meetings.
Hand-delivered several hundred invitations to come and talk to the CDO about the city's plans for the DRI and parking, and close to 20 business owners took us up on that offer, and we
Yeah.
had 6 different meetings to talk about.
So these are the kinds of little reminders that I think that we should all carry along with, our meetings with the public, and I appreciate everything you're doing to help inform them.
Well, also, is the business owners that asked for us to start enforcing the current on-street parking regulations.
That's
That
right.
was made by a
Another
request
nice.
from the owner of Bono's and quite a lot of other people at our parking meeting, and there was public outcry that led the council to purchase the soon-to-be Arnold Pavone parking lot. So,
I think getting the message out there and laying out the facts nice and clean is going to be helpful. Not that they're not already there, but in a fashion that is a little bit more accessible.
Speaking of item number 7A on the agenda, Jess, I see you over there, and I see here that the agenda item is to name the Arnie Pavone parking lot. But if I remember your petition, you wanted it was Arnold.
But people don't know him as Arnold Pavone is what we found. So having Arnie's restaurant and Arnie, and because it's not going to, whoever I spoke with, it might not necessarily be as square as Nick was hoping or thinking. So the parking lot would be more suitable than having it a square and it not turn out to be a square.
So would you prefer Arnie Pavone instead of Arnold Pavone?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody ever called him Arnold.
Well, that's just it, it's a nickname, it's like they call me Bill,
I see.
but really it's
I just wanted to
Bill,
make sure.
but they know me as Bill. So same thing with Arnie, so, because Nick Pope was actually gonna come this evening, but he's doing the 55-year anniversary for his wedding, and he's not feeling too well. So, it's, I would actually put him right on the front spot.
And he really wanted to be here tonight, but unfortunately he isn't going.
So our resolution has the right name, Arnie Pavone. That's the name you would prefer.
You guys like to add memorial in Arnie Pavone Memorial parking lot, or just Arnie Pavone parking lot?
Actually, that's a good question. I would say Arnie Pavone Memorial Parking Lot. Well, you know the story. He's been in business, and the guys, the sons are still now running it. It'll probably be here for at least another 25, 30 years.
I'd like to, during the meeting, make that, or have one of us make that motion.
Okay.
I agree with you, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, and whoever I spoke with on the phone, I told her that Nick and I were open to the ideas of different names with the name Arnie Pavone.
Cool.
Very good.
City Infrastructure, Councilor Moore.
We just went over our meeting just a little while ago, so I'm not going to repeat everything that we did.
Finance and Budget, Councilor Kelly.
I think during the new business part of our meeting tonight, I'd like to talk a little bit about the 5-year budget plan.
And Public Safety, Councilor Gibbs.
So I been working on the animal control contract, and I also made some phone calls to the town of Potsdam code enforcement officer, and just trying to get more information about what other municipalities are doing about enforcing large items on the side of the road, garbage pickup, because garbage is what is going to attract nuisance animals. And then I've also been on the DEC website looking for guidelines, and I actually found a really great link, and I was hoping we could put this somewhere on our city website. And I don't know where the appropriate place would be for that, but things that people can do to minimize animal encounters. The DEC's got some guidelines, so should I just
Send it in, we'll find a place for it.
send you the link? Okay. And so, they are really clear about it. You can't have food out, eliminate where animals would like to hide. So if you've got like tons of trimmings in your yard, you want to get rid of those. And also found some DEC sanctioned forms about how to keep track of animals and incidents. So I'm just continuing to get some more information, and Councilor Ensel and I are going to share some information, hoping that we can come to a final conclusion on this with our next public safety meeting.
Is there any way that when they trap the animals, that there's some other way to dispose of the animals rather than murdering them?
You're not supposed to. DEC guidelines are not trap and euthanize. They're supposed to be trapped humanely according to DEC guidelines, and then they're supposed to be released in their natural environment in the wild.
Perfect. I like
The
that.
only time an animal should be euthanized is if there are really,
Rabies.
Health risks.
exactly, there are some serious risks and mitigating circumstances, but there's all kinds of resources out there, so we're just continue to work on that, come up with
And
a,
that actually somewhat coincides with the livability subcommittee.
absolutely. Yep. It does.
Thank you.
Especially this time of year when college students are vacating and people are
Yeah.
dumping things, so.
Plattsburgh Public Library, Council Ransel,
No report at this time.
and MLD Board President, Council.
No update.
Let's begin tonight's council meeting then with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed,
Present.
Counselor Armstrong,
Here.
Counselor Kelly,
Here.
Counselor Gibbs,
Here.
Counselor Renzel,
Here.
Counselor McFarland,
Present.
Counselor Moore,
Here.
You've all heard the very sad news this week. I'd like to offer a proclamation, whereas Becky Casper served on the City of Plattsburgh Common Council from January 2014 to February 2018. Whereas Councilor Casper organized numerous Earth Day activities, including Cleanup Day, in which she solicited the help of many community members. Whereas working alongside her mother, she personally planted and maintained flowers at various places in the City of Plattsburgh. Whereas she loved all creatures, great and small, and especially worked tirelessly to protect and reduce the size of the feral cat community. Whereas she adopted the roundabout at the corner of New York Avenue and US Avenue. Whereas we all shall miss Councilor Casper and are saddened by her sudden loss. Whereas the city wishes to honor Becky Casper for her contributions to the City of Plattsburgh and offers sincere condolences to her family and friends. Resolved that I, Colin L. Reed, Mayor of the City of Plattsburgh, proclaim this week to be dedicated in honor of former Ward 5 Councilor Becky Casper, and be it further resolved that the roundabout at the corner of New York Avenue and US Avenue shall be known as the Casper Circle. I think a number of us are going to do other things to help improve that circle in her memory. So I'd also like to ask you for a 1 minute moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you, and I'd be honored to hear any of your additional comments or reflections at this time.
Thank you so much for that, Mayor. I know there will be a number of ways that Becky will be honored. It was an honor to serve with her on the council, run for office with her, campaign with her, spend some evenings on the phone, hashing out issues big and small. You know, there was no encounter with Becky Casper that wasn't intense and energetic, and she just had so much energy to give, and she did. She served this community in so many ways, and you know, she was smart and thoughtful, and the thing I loved about her was that she could see complexity in issues, and then also could see the various points of view surrounding it. So, you know, she brought so much knowledge and wisdom to the issues she dealt with. As an educator and public servant, she was guided by very, very strong principles. I don't know, some of you may know, she was a PhD in theology, very well versed in world religions. And she was one who was really concerned about our country and our planet, our city. And Though Becky served in big ways, she also knew how little acts of kindness and service added up to make the world a better place. Little things like scattering wildflowers, seeds all over the city. She had this program where she was going to take wildflower bombs and just go all over the city. Kathy McCleary reminded me of this when she published on the Facebook page Becky founded, Plattsburgh is Beautiful. And here I'm quoting Kathy. One of the first causes Becky pushed for was growing wildflowers in every spare corner, empty lot, and broken concrete crack in the city. If you want to honor what she and her mother most wanted, as you find those random corners, plant some flowers. So we have some seed packets here for you, and we can start this campaign. And we want Becky to rest in peace and know that flowers will bloom for her.
Thank you, Councilor.
I'd just like to say thank you, Mayor, as well, and Rochelle for those kind words. I knew Becky long before serving on the council and sitting next to her. And I know I was asked today by a journalist, the one thing about Becky that a lot of people didn't know, and the one thing I could think about was her sense of humor.
Razor wit.
She was extremely witty, and she had just a really cutting sense of humor that was just a joy to behold. Rochelle, I like your idea about the seeds and so on, and I guess and Mayor with the Becky Casper Circle, I guess I would like to throw out there possibly that we as a council, and maybe even some of Becky's dear and close friends, maybe pick a time and we could spend a couple of hours maybe over at the circle and plant some flowers and some seeds and so on. I think that would go, she would love that.
She would.
I think that's a great idea. I first met Becky after I was appointed to replace her on the council, right in this room actually. She took time out of her day to give me a lot of advice on the council and give me a lot of knowledge on the 5th Ward, which I found to be very helpful. She told me then that there was more dogs in the 5th Ward than there were people. I've certainly seen no evidence to disprove that. I remember when I was petitioning for election this last November or late October, I was finishing up a day of getting petitions with my wife, and we were finishing up on Lind Avenue, where Becky lived. And we started on the north end, and we're walking down getting petition signatures on the east side of Lind Avenue. And we're going to come back and get petitions down the west side to end out the day. Well, Becky's house was one of the first houses on the return route, and she ended up inviting me and my wife into her house. We ended up spending over an hour there, and never did get signatures from the rest of the west side of the street there, but she'll certainly be missed.
Any others like to add anything? If you'd all like to sign the proclamation too, can you share it with us? Well, thank you all very much, and that concludes my comments.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on May 2nd, 2019 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the City Clerk's office.
Moved by Councillor Gibbs, second by Councillor Ensel. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the City of Plattsburgh for the week ending May 8th, 2019 in the amount of $479,348.83 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn to the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councillor Gibbs, second by Councillor Kelly. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. We discussed the reports in our work session a moment ago. Are there any additional reports people like to offer this time? Seeing none, resolve the reports as listed are hereby ordered received, and any written reports are placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office. Moved by Councillor Gibbs, second by Councillor McFarland. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. No correspondences or recommendations from boards at this time.
Resolved that the bills audited by the common council for the week ending May 10th, 2019, in the amount of $787,989.28 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city treasurer for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councillor Kelly and second by Councillor Ansel. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. This is an opportunity now for the public to please come address the council on any issues on the agenda tonight. Our agenda is just right outside the door, and we will have another public comment period at the end of the meeting tonight as well. This may be a time if you'd like to discuss the Arnie Pavone dedication. You're certainly invited to come up and say a few words at this time.
So as I said earlier, being a businessman in the community stable for over 65 years, I'm just, an employee who he considered a son. I've actually known him for a while, knew him for over 20 years, and I was actually invited to go work for him. I didn't go there looking for work. He liked the personality. Of course, he thought I was crazy, but it all works out. So with that being said, with his address being right there on Margaret Street, it only seems fitting that they would go maybe and do something as far as, and I like the idea with memorial, the Arnie Pavone Memorial Parking or something like that. You? Oh, and on that,
We do, Nick definitely wanted to be here. He did want to say thank you to everyone for taking the time and hearing him about this issue, because it means a lot to him, and he truly wishes he could have been here.
and on behalf of Nick, he wanted to thank the council members, members of the public who signed the petition, and showed their interest in what we're doing for Arnie Pavone.
So thank you all so much.
Certainly was a legend.
Pardon?
Thank
He
you to
certainly was a
everyone.
legend.
Yes. And to everyone in the community as well. Everyone who made the
And the part that's really
effort
nice though is,
sign it.
the part that's really nice is for over the years, he actually returned to the community a lot as far as donations, things like that. And the Sons continue to do that. All right, if you knew how many people show up at the door looking for a donation daily for whomever, whatever, and the guys, if you will, are all very quick to see what they can do and help out with a donation. Gift certificates, you've seen them. They're all over. So.
And all the teams that they've sponsored over the years as well.
Exactly. So, anything else there, Princess? All right.
Thank you. Well, thank you for putting that together.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it. Any other members, public, please come and address the council on issues on the agenda tonight. Seeing none, please continue.
Whereas the common council recognizes that Arnold Arnie Pavone and his restaurant, Arnie's Restaurant, has been a fixture of Margaret Street for many decades, and whereas the common council has received a petition from the friends and family of Arnie Pavone signed by over 300 individuals to name the city's proposed parking lot located at 25 Margaret Street after his namesake following his passing in November of 2018. Now therefore, it is hereby resolved in accordance with the request, therefore, that the city's proposed parking lot located at 25 Margaret Street be named the Arnie Pavone parking lot.
Moved by Councillor Kelly, and I
Can
see
we,
that all
just-
of us would like to
Could we
second.
amend this to be?
Well, first you have to.
We have to do it for discussion first.
Yep.
Kelly, and who was the second?
Well, I think everybody's.
Everybody.
Yeah.
A discussion?
I'd like to actually make a motion to amend this resolution to have it read the second or the last sentence. Now therefore, it hereby be resolved in accordance with the request, therefore, that the city's proposed parking lot located at 25 Margaret Street be named the Arnie Pavone Memorial Parking Lot.
Will all first and second accept that?
Second.
That's been accepted. Any further discussion?
So that motion passed, or the amendment
We
passed?
haven't, that's right.
Okay. No, the only thing I was maybe concerned of is that people might be confused and think it's only parking for Arnie's, but I don't think that'll really be it.
No, I don't think so.
No, it's,
More
I
parking
think
for
the
your customers,
inclusion of the
I
word
guess.
memorial will help clear that
There'd be a
up.
line up there.
I'd just like to say that when I moved here, going on 24 years ago, the locals told me the place you got to go is Arnie's. Go to Arnie's and have some dinner, and I did. And then, of course, the problem after that was I couldn't stop going back. So it's always remained one of my favorite places to visit. And I think this is a wonderful way to honor that man who stood at the top of the stairs almost every time I ever visited there, waiting for the next customer to arrive. So
Yes.
I'm happy about this.
Do you guys think the last word there instead of lot should be plaza?
The Arnie, little alliteration, the Arnie
I
Pavone
like
parking
plaza better
plaza.
than lot. Okay. Little alliteration, hey?
Well, that's why I did like
Gibbs?
the memorial, you as alliteration. I don't know, I don't care.
Well,
Do the first and seconders accept that
I'll
amendment?
make that motion, yeah.
Second.
Okay,
Parking
You like
plaza,
that,
that
Jess?
sounds nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
that works for you,
Better
Mr.
than
Miller?
lot.
Plaza works,
Especially
okay?
since it's a memorial, right?
Because if it looked like Arnie's parking, it would look like it was just for the restaurant.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Why don't we just say plaza instead of parking? Plaza.
The Arnie Pavone Memorial Plaza?
Yeah.
I think you need parking in there, well, maybe I don't know.
What
The
do you
plaza
think?
might be a little bit confusing.
Confusing?
People
Okay.
confuse
We
it.
can always change it later, I guess, if we really need to. It's gonna be a big sign.
We got time.
Never
We
mind.
got time.
Do we need was that just a friendly amendment, or do we need
Yeah,
a
everybody's
roll call
accepted
vote
the
on that?
amendments, I don't think we need to vote.
According to Beth?
So right now, it's called the Arnie
All right.
Pavone Park Memorial Parking Plaza.
Plaza.
There we
Okay.
go.
Any further discussion?
It's gonna be a
Roll
big
call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
sign. Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council moves that the mayor is authorized to sign a professional service agreement with Architectural and Engineering Design Associates, PC, for engineering services related to the rebuild of the 25 Margaret Street site to a new city parking lot for a cost not to exceed $34,600. Payment shall be made from the parking fund.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Armstrong. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves all state construction to close Park Avenue between Olivetti Place and Sanborn Avenue on May 22nd, 2019, between 7 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. to accommodate the delivery of an HTHW generator to the central plant for SUNY Plattsburgh.
Moved by Councilor Gibbs, second by Councilor Moore. Discussion?
What day of the week is that?
It is Tuesday or Wednesday? Wednesday. 18th is Saturday.
Yep. It is.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves extending contract 2017-8 sludge hauling for WPCP until May 31st, 2020, with Drummond Septic Service for the estimated lump sum price of $186,224.48.
Moved by Councilor Armstrong, second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion?
I wasn't here for the committee meeting, I assume this was discussed at the committee meeting.
It's all
Same price as
extensions.
last year.
Same price, yeah. Okay.
Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves extending the contract 2017-09 instrumentation water resource recovery facility until June 27th, 2020 with Total Control System Services, Inc. for the estimated lump sum price of $36,212.
Moved by Counselor Gibbs, second by Counselor Wenzel. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Wenzel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore, the Common Council approves extending contract 2018-04 electrical services water resource recovery facility until June 27th, 2020, with Triangle Electric Systems, Inc. wages match the CPI-U and not to exceed 3%.
Moved by Counselor Kelly, second by Counselor Moore. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Edsel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
No travel requests at this time. Are there any resolutions for initial consideration? Seeing none, new business and council reports. I think Counselor Kelly, you indicated.
Do have some new business I want to share with you. I sent an email to all of you earlier this week to kick off our 2019 5-year budget plan. And we discovered from last year that a good way to do that is to talk about assumptions first. What are our budget assumptions? So I'd like to show you what our budget assumptions were last year.
Richard, can you get one? Thank you.
In 2018, the council approved these assumptions. One is that we deliver cost and value. We deliver the best service for the lowest cost to our taxpayers. A structural balance. In other words, we will create balanced budgets in which our revenues hopefully remain lower than higher than our expenses. Unassigned fund balance growth. We will continue to increase the unassigned fund balance steadily over the next few years. And sustainability as our final assumption. We will create budgets that are sustainable for many years to come. Now, council, I hope you've had a chance to read these and consider them. Is there anything you would like to add or take away from those 4 budget assumptions?
If we think of something later, is that okay?
We have until June 1st to pass
Okay.
a 5-year plan, Michelle.
Right.
So anytime anybody thinks of anything like that, please speak up. But we will use these assumptions now to design our 5-year plan. The only other thing I wanted to do tonight was to discuss with you the inflation of expenses. In the past, we have used a figure of 3.15%. Where the rate of inflation hovers around 2% currently, but we add an adder for the cost of health care. That's a decision we made last year. So if we do that, our inflation figure for our 5-year plan would be 3%, but I would recommend that we keep that at 3.15%, just like we've done in the past year. Would anybody care to comment on that, or
So,
do you agree with that figure?
well, I don't know, I mean, what went into your thinking behind it?
Well, it was a good figure for last year, and it helped us design a budget that,
Right.
Created the fund balance that we were
Right.
seeking, so.
But I mean, I'm just, maybe Colin, as the economist, can talk about what kind of variables go into kind of anticipating that percentage.
I think your statement's correct. The inflation rate's been hovering just below 2%, but the most problematic part is about 1/3 of our general fund budget is for current and past employee retirees' health care benefits. and that is escalating often. Well, we've actually been quite fortunate. Our inflation rate for that is somewhere between 4% and 6% typically. Other places, other municipalities have been having closer to 8 and 10% inflation. So we're fortunate. We did meet with our healthcare consultant about a week or two ago to discuss those assumptions. So I think overall blending the inflation rate and the healthcare inflation, which is about a third of our general fund budget, I think a number around 3% is probably quite prudent.
I think,
Richard, do you have any other comments to add to that?
No, with 3% across the board, 3.15 across the board at $725,000 to the current 2019 budget, so it's.
how much was that, Richard?
725,000. So it's a big nut to crack.
Yeah.
Now, I guess my question is, as we have discussed, there's a reassessment taking place. I think that should also be somewhat factored into the assumptions, because with reassessment, certainly the revenue probably increase. So I don't know if that factors into that, how much that factors into the $720,000.
Well,
I know
let
it's
me
probably, it's
explain.
more budgetary than,
Let me explain how the tax cap, I think this council's always made every effort to try to stay consistent with the tax cap. The tax cap looks at the total levy increase. So as our property tax base goes up by 4%, if we did nothing with the mill rate, kept the same mill rate as last year, we would actually then exceed the tax cap. So we're going to have to, if we really do see more revenue coming in because of the increase in assessments from the county assessor's work, then that may also require a lowering of the property tax rate, the mill rate per thousand, to make sure that people in effect aren't sending in checks more than a couple percent higher than the previous year. So as the base goes up, the property tax rate has to go down to make sure you're not
within the
simply,
cap.
handicapping our residents.
Mhm.
So when that time comes to set those mill rates and stay below the tax cap, Chairman Marks will give us a calculation that shows us what kind of latitude we have to stay under the tax cap. So in this case, we'll probably end up driving our tax rate, no tax rate.
Mhm.
Is that accurate?
Very good.
Okay, no, I think that's
Expect nothing
an
less.
important message to get out there.
Right now,
So-
yes.
Yeah.
So tonight, all I wanted to do was agree on the assumptions and agree on the inflation of expenses rate. And I think we've arrived at that. However, any of these items are subject to change. So I would recommend next week we talk about the assessments and what we think that figure should be. So
Good.
definitely keep that in mind and think about it. Last year's rate, for your information, was 0.54%. Probably going to be higher than that this year. Okay.
And we'll prepare for you and update the 5 and 10-year plan to incorporate now the known numbers for 2018, because then that's the basis for the estimate of the expenses going forward. So we'll work on that for your committee as well.
Yes, I always hesitate to pull out that spreadsheet at our first discussion because it tends to make people's eyes glaze over. But we'll take a look at it next week.
Maybe we'll have a different spreadsheet. Hey, Jeff? Just a plug.
Thanks, Mike.
I was gonna bring up assessments. I know I sent you guys all an email Tuesday. I think on just the one day of Monday, I had more calls on the assessments, where more people directly contact me on the assessment issues, more than any other issue we've ever talked about here, other than the feral cat issue, which is way above everyone else. But yeah, and then Peter obviously touched upon it there. Just because your assessment that goes up doesn't necessarily mean your taxes are going to go up or by the amount of the assessment. I went to the assessor's office on Tuesday. I made a meeting to meet with the county assessor. That's set up for next Tuesday. But basically residential, my understanding is that all residential assessments were reviewed by him as I think the first time in like 11 years for a lot of properties in the city. And they were based on comparable sales. And I think a lot of it is driven by the real estate market and how houses are selling fast. I do know that a lot of properties are putting properties over and above, selling properties over and above the assessed value. So I just wanted to get it out there that we are looking into that. It's certainly caused a lot of people to be concerned, but we certainly won't ignore that issue.
Thank you, and certainly I got that same bill that you all got in the mail. My assessment went up as well, but reading the signs up front, apparently I don't live in the city, so I may not have to pay that bill. But I think all of our signs, or a lot of our assessments went up, but I'm appreciative that I think our county assessor is very rigorous and is using very scientific methods. And please everybody know too that there is a grievance day that people can ought to come and challenge their assessment if they do feel it is somehow inappropriate.
And I will say, when I was at the assessor's office, the woman I was talking to was saying that their phone's been ringing off the hook too.
Yeah.
I had a hard time scheduling a meeting with the assessor because so many people have been requesting meetings with him. So it seems to be a hot topic. We'll see how it plays out, certainly.
At this point, I heard they're making, scheduling meetings for the weekend days.
Really?
Yeah, to keep up with the volume.
Whoa.
At least Saturdays, I'm not sure about Sundays. but
Makes anyone feel better? I hear Shazy's went up a lot more than the cities.
Yeah, that was a full, across the town revaluation,
Yeah.
which made for very high rate changes.
I think ours increased a little over 4% on average. Which, yeah, I think the big cause for concern was the fact that it hadn't been done on a lot of residential properties in a number of years. So it was like kind of like a sticker shock sort of
So typically, I mean, I seem to recall in years past that it was almost like a 5-year process that it would somewhat, unless there was improvements to the property or so on. Or, I mean, after a sale, but also that there'd be a 5-year kind of reevaluation of assessments or reassessment.
Well, we're supposed to get 100% property valuation, so it's supposed to be adjusted as property values
Sale.
prevailing rise. And you can imagine our offices don't have anything to do with assessment because it really needs to be an independent body that makes those
Right.
determinations. And good assessments are very scientific. They use software, they use a lot of data, and they receive a lot of training on how to update them as well. And I've got every confidence in the assessor that's been appointed to the city of Plattsburgh by the county.
One thing I thought was very interesting when I was doing research on this was that residential properties are increasing, land value assessments are increasing a little bit, but the big was the value of improvements was the assessments were increasing a lot. But commercial properties, the assessment value of the land has decreased, but every commercial property, at least that I looked at, and I looked at quite a few, the actual total assessment stayed exactly the same. Which I thought was interesting because I happen to know that a lot of commercial properties around here are for sale for well over, or for this sticker price at least, for well over, I'm talking like 4 times. So in some cases, the assessed value, what the assessed value is. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, you know, to put this in proper perspective for everyone, I mean, if you take the amount of years since you were last assessed and average it over the amount of years that you had, you will probably see that it's kind of close to the inflation rate or somewhere in the ballpark. So because they haven't been doing it for such a long time, it is sticker shock for a lot of people, but I think normally the county, you know, redoes those every couple of years, so that won't happen again. But this initial time, if you do the average, you'll see a realistic number of how much your house increased in value, your property.
I certainly wasn't complaining about the years where it didn't go up. It's just the year it does go up when you get the complaints rate.
Richard?
I think during the research for last year's 5-year plan, I was asked to get with the assessor and see what his projection was for the values of properties in the city of Plattsburgh. At that time, he said it was undervalued by approximately 2 to 4% on average. That was last year.
So it's right in his estimate.
It sounds very consistent with what's going on right now. But some properties are higher, some are lower, so there's gonna be, disparities with certain properties that they're gonna have to look at, but on average, it's pretty much right on what he predicted last year.
I think that our assessor's approach going forward will not be unlike our approach with the tax cap, and that is, we're trying very hard to deliver a budget each year that's below the tax cap so that it's predictable for taxpayers. So if assessments are done every couple of years, then they become more predictable so homeowners can prepare for those kinds of things. I'm also excited about it because it gives us, the council, an opportunity to look at our tax rate from a more realistic basis, and that these are what these properties are actually worth, and that we can adjust our tax rate based on that, and that can only be good to do that going forward, I think. I'm a big fan of reality.
Any other additional new business or council reports?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to talk about parking briefly. And I know there's been a lot of misinformation, misleading information, even some outright lies out there in the public sphere. And I've reached out to Chairman Miller and Vice Chairman Vincent about the parking committee, and I've asked to be put on the last place on the agenda to talk about parking. I talk about my personal ideas as far as parking, mostly to talk about curb parking and curbside parking and how to fix this. I think you'll see online that certainly a lot of people are probably upset with getting tickets. And I think our current curb parking system with the 2-hour limit is beyond ridiculous, and it needs to be changed, and it needs to be changed quickly, or definitely quicker than the prime outline that Director Miller outlined last week. So I asked to be last on the agenda because I do have court again, so I will be late
When's the
yet
meeting?
again. But
Is it next
Tuesday?
next Tuesday.
At what time?
Parking committee meeting starts at 6.
Okay.
I'm hoping to give my ideas at least on curb parking, and maybe some other ideas at around 7:30-ish, is usually when the parking committee is wrapping up and going to public comment. So I'll get there as soon as I possibly can. I think last time I got there around 7:30. And if any members of the public would like to come, I'd certainly be happy to answer any of their questions as well. And I know there's been, you mentioned public outreach and stuff like that. I don't think it's gonna solve that. Everywhere you look, every time anyone's addressed parking, it's a hot issue.
That's
With a
true.
lot of negativity, a lot of people claiming like apocalypse now sort of, predictions. But I do think that we do have some work to be done, and I think it could better the city, it could better our businesses, and I look forward to having that discussion.
I appreciate.
It's gonna be Tuesday at 7, Tuesday at 6 is the parking committee meeting.
Right here.
I will be late.
I won't be able to do that, but I do agree with the 2-hour parking because I have elderly customers. We just had, obviously, other restaurants are opening downtown, and you can definitely see their employees are parking outside of the parking spots that normally elderly that go to Arnie's would be able to park at. They can't park there anymore because employees are parked there all day long.
Well, yes, so certainly the 2-hour parking is managed, it's very inefficient, but I'll talk more about it on Thursday. It's not just, I wouldn't suggest a time limit, but I would suggest some sort of managed parking system. The problem with time limits is they're very inefficient. If people are going to be parking under that time limit, then it doesn't really affect them. If people were going to be parking over that time limit, then they're banned from parking.
Yeah, because I have a gal house, she works over on Clinton Street for the hearing aid. Forgot his name, but anyway, she's already received 2 tickets in the past week and a half, because she works there on Clinton Street.
Clinton Street parking is still open, great.
Not Durkee Street, not Clinton Street. Anyway, Clinton Street. Clinton Oak Clinton Oak Laundromat, I know they're first to mark because the residents that live upstairs in the apartments will leave their vehicle there all day. Meanwhile, I have to drop off laundry and I have to park around the corner because that car's been sitting there for all day. So I understand the whole parking thing.
Yeah, well, like I said, our businesses were the ones that asked to enforce the current parking. And I certainly heard from some businesses that like now there's parking opening on the street.
Yeah.
And I do know that when there was just free-for-all free parking on the street, people would park there all day, people would park for weeks if they could. So there certainly needs to be some form of managed parking. There is actually consensus in the planning.
Point of order, are we in new business? Where are we on the agenda here?
This isn't
So I'll
this isn't
discuss
public comment.
This isn't public comment.
Sorry.
Hot topic.
But I do think you've been sharing a lot of good research amongst the council, and I think that's very helpful. I'm sure it's all been very much, actually much of it comes from there is actually a national group called Strong Towns that really scientifically looks at this and looks at all the best practices. And interestingly enough, has very different prescriptions than the local Strong Towns. So I think that information exchange is very helpful. Thank you. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of additional discussion on Tuesday. Councilor Kelly?
One thing I've been curious about is when the Arnie Pavone Memorial Parking Plaza opens, roughly in September or October?
Later this year.
Later this year, will it be a paid parking lot at that point, or will that come later?
That hasn't been decided yet by the parking committee, and obviously we'd make that decision, I think, but based upon a recommendation from the parking committee. So that hasn't really been decided yet.
No. I'm looking forward to a firm timeline of how things will progress, and I know you're working toward that.
And just a quick update, the city did release yesterday an RFP for a pay station system, so essentially kiosks for downtown.
Right.
So that'll be a 5-6 week process. Then we'll, endeavor to get those installed, if we start getting installed later this year.
How many kiosks are we looking at?
That's not decided yet either. That's going to be
And
based
it's
on.
going to be based on the presentations that are received.
All right.
Any further councilor comments or reports?
I just wanted to comment, we had our second meeting of the Livable Community Group. Really happy with the way things are progressing, a lot of ideas. I know Peter probably would like to add to that, but we're at the point where we're going to start being able to bring forward some bullet points that we think would be well worthwhile to enact.
And I think Jeff or Colin, we're going to ask if we could have permission for either both Chief Ritter and Inspector McMahon to come before the committee to discuss.
Just one last thing, don't forget to pick up some wildflower seeds for Becky.
Any final new business or council reports before we move to closing public comments? Seeing none, this is an opportunity for the public to please come address the council on any issues of mutual concern. Anybody? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councilor Hensel, second by Councilor Gibbs. Roll call?
Councilor Armstrong?
Yes.
Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Councilor Gibbs?
Yes.
Councilor Hensel?
Yes.
Councilor McFarland?
Yes.
Councilor Moore?
Yes.
Thank you all for coming tonight.
Okay, made a list of phone calls and things to do for tomorrow regarding the animal control business.
Oh, that's what I'm doing?
Yep.
I'm gonna call.
So you know, I thought, I'll call them because they have a city that is the same population as us. They've got a college, and see what they're doing. I'll email you what I found, and I've got some thoughts about that whole rethinking the way that we've done that contract.
Yeah,
So I'll send
I've
you
probably
some
been
thoughts I
by, you
got.
know,